Okay, thanks a lot, Derek. In Money Tuesday, 3 questions everyone should ask about their financial future. Stewart Welch is a financial planner with the Welch Group. He joins us this morning with those 3 questions. Good to see you.
Good morning, Rick.
Okay, very small number here, 3 questions, but big, weighty questions that you have
It's simple,
here.
though.
Yeah. Okay, let's, because you say the thing that we always talk about in Money Tuesday is the fact that so many people are heading to retirement without a whole lot of plan or a lot of groundwork done.
That's exactly right, Rick. And I think the other thing is when I've been working with couples for over 30 years, and what I find is that there's typically one of the couple that's in charge. You know, they're the ones that are taking care of the finances, and the other one's kind of not in charge. Yeah. But they're assuming that they're tracking right. And so here I came up with 3 questions to ask the in-charge person to find out if you're going to need to get help, get professional help.
Okay, let's talk about it. The first question you say, do we have an up-to-date financial statement?
So up-to-date financial statement is just it's a list of all of your assets and all of your liabilities and your sources of income. And it is the most basic tool in financial planning. It basically tells you where you are. And if you don't have one, that's your first red flag that you're probably going to need to get some professional help. Okay,
it's kind of refreshing when you sit down and say, okay, this is it. You think you may know a little bit, but this really kind of puts it in black and white in front of you.
Yeah, so if you're asking your husband, do we have an up-to-date financial statement, and there's no, then even the not-in-charge person goes, we might need help.
Okay, number 2 question. You say, what are we saving as a % of our gross income?
What are we saving as a percentage of our gross income? A lot of times this gets the deer in the headlights stare. And just a hint, if you're in your 20s, that should be a minimum of 10% of your gross income. If you're in your 30s, you ought to have accumulated at least 1 times your income in investments. So if you're making $50,000, there ought to be at least $50,000 in investments.
And saving somehow.
And if you hadn't done that, you need to bump that to 15%. And when you move into your 40s, that needs to be 2 times to 3 times your income in investments. And if you hadn't done that, you need to bump it to 20%.
And what we're talking about, just to clarify, a lot of folks listening to this is not necessarily a savings account that's sitting there. This is a 401k, any number of things, any kind of IRA, any kind of retirement savings that you have in place.
Yes, so if you're in your 40s, you're making $50,000, you should have about $150,000 at a minimum in that account.
Okay, let's talk about number 3. This one, a lot of folks will hear it. It's financial speak, but the question is, what's your number? And this is what you're saying, that couples need to sit down and say, what's our number?
What's our number? And you ought to know what it is, but it's how much capital do you need to have in order to have the retirement of your dreams. You need to know the number, and then you can be working toward that number. If you don't know the number, you're like, Alice in Wonderland. Any path will get you there.
And it's not a bad thing to go on and say, okay, dream big, and say, I've got big goals, I want to live really well, but also be realistic with that number, right?
That's exactly right. So you come up with, I love coming up with the dream number, and then it helps you sit down and plan, well, how would we get there? What do we need to do? And it may involve a lot of things. Investing differently, it may involve getting a second job, it may involve getting a new job, but whatever it is, decide what that number is together and then start working toward it.
When it comes to something like this, you say it's good to go on and talk to some kind of professional because they can help you kind of devise that number and that plan to get there.
Well, I think if you ask the 3 questions and you don't get the proper answers, then you know you're going to need professional help, and you can work with a certified financial planner at cfp.net. That'll find one in your local area.
All right. Stewart Welch, always good to see you, pal.
Thanks
so much. More to come on.